Okay. I'd like to begin today with a land acknowledgement. So while you may be joining us from all over the world, I am in London, Ontario, where Western's campus is located. The university campus is located on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Lenape and Chinungton nations. I'm grateful to be able to live, learn, and play on these lands. All right. So today we're going to cover the costs you need to consider at university, including tuition and living costs. Then we'll talk about support available to pay for it, including government loans like OSAP, scholarships, and bursaries. Most of the presentation will focus on funding that you can use in September as a new student. But at the end of the presentation, I'll also give a brief overview of upper year funding options as well. So before we begin, I'd love to know what you are most interested in learning about this evening. Is it costs, maybe OSAP if you're from Ontario, scholarships, bursaries, or maybe you're not sure, and that's okay. We'll cover everything. So I'll give you guys a few seconds to submit your answers in the poll. Okay, I see a lot of people are interested in scholarships. That's great. Scholarships, university costs, and OSAP seem like the biggest points of interest, which is awesome. We are going to be talking about all of these things in great detail. So yeah, looks like scholarships won out, which is great. So let's first start with how much going to Western would cost. So I believe it's best to think of the cost of university in two categories. First is tuition. This is what you'll pay to attend classes at Western, and it's probably what most people think of first when considering the cost of university. But it's also important to consider living costs. Where will you live? How much will you pay for food, books, and social activities? If you're from outside of Ontario, you'll also need to consider the cost of travel. For now, let's start with tuition. So here you can see an estimate of what your tuition might look like in first year. Your tuition depends on your program. Some programs cost more than others. It also depends on whether you're from Ontario, elsewhere in Canada, or international. As for living costs, your biggest cost will almost certainly be rent. I always recommend living in residence, also known as dorms, for many reasons, one of which being you know how much you're going to be spending. Your residence room also comes with a meal plan, which you can use for food in residence at our dining halls, but also in our campus eateries and restaurants around London like Domino's and Swiss Chalet. You start the year with a certain amount of money in your meal plan, and you can spend it however you'd like. If you have money left over after your first year, you can use it in your next year. Or if you run out, you can easily top up online. Another perk to living in residence is that your utilities and internet are included, so you won't have any surprise bills in the mail. Lastly, a spot in residence is guaranteed for all new students coming from high school, so I highly recommend you take advantage of that offer. But if you do choose to live off campus, you're still a big part of the Western family, and we can support you with anything from rental listings to landlord or roommate mediation. You can expect rent in London to cost between $10,000 and $24,000 for the year, depending on where you choose to live. Okay, let's pause for another poll. I'm interested to know, are you thinking of living in residence, off campus, or maybe you're from London, thinking of living at home? Maybe you don't know yet, and that's okay. All right, I'll give everyone a few seconds to put in their answer. Oh, awesome. I love to see that so many of you are thinking of living in residence. I lived in residence in my first year and I had an absolutely wonderful time. So that is amazing. Okay. Now, I imagine you might be feeling a little overwhelmed by all the numbers I just threw at you. Do not worry, you can use our financial calculator, and this will give you a breakdown of tuition and living costs, as well as sources of funding. And you can consider different scenarios to figure out how much funding you'll need. Your actual tuition bill is calculated once you enroll in classes. This will include residence costs as well. And you'll receive this bill at the start of July, and don't worry, we'll send you an email about it. This email will also outline options for when and how to pay. And at Western, you have choices. You will automatically start on the standard payment plan, which means you'll pay in two installments. You'll pay the first installment in August and the second in December. If you'd like more flexibility, you can instead choose to pay just 25% in August, plus the $100 fee, and then you'll pay the rest of your tuition in 5 equal installments throughout the year. Okay, so that's an overview of how much attending Western might cost. It can feel like a big number, but there are lots of supports available to help you pay for this investment in your future. Today, I will talk about 3 main sources of funding: loans, scholarships, and bursaries. Let's get started with loans. If you're from Ontario, you have likely already heard of OSAP, which is the Ontario Student Assistance Program. OSAP is for Ontario residents who are Canadian citizens, permanent residents, or protected persons. OSAP can support you to go to any approved school around the world, including Western. They could offer you a loan, which you'll pay back after school, but they also offer grants, which you don't need to pay back. You'll be automatically considered for both a loan and a grant, but you don't have to accept them. For example, you could choose to accept the grant but deny the loan. Here are some tips for applying to OSAP. Apply by June 30th so your OSAP funding is ready for the first tuition installment. If your funding covers your whole first installment, you don't have to do anything when the bill is due. Second, be sure to include your Western student number for easy identification. You can find this in the email that we'll send you a few days after you apply. The subject line should be, "It's time for your next steps." Finally, don't report any scholarships or bursaries that you are receiving from Western in your application. We will report them for you, and we don't want them to show up twice. Other provinces in Canada also offer loans similar to OSAP. If you have any questions about the loans in your province, please feel free to go ahead and enter them in the chat. One last thing I want to highlight is that you don't have to pay back loans immediately or all at once. You'll usually pay them back in manageable monthly chunks, and if you're having trouble, you can also apply for a repayment assistance plan. All right, let's move on to funding sources that you don't have to pay back. You've probably heard of scholarships before. They are sources of funding that are awarded, often based on your grades, achievements, or experiences. They can be awarded either by the university you're attending or an external source. At Western, we give some scholarships automatically to students with the top grades. If your final admission average is 90% or higher, you'll be guaranteed a scholarship, no application required. The scholarship includes money towards tuition and money towards an optional abroad experience. Once you receive an offer, you can see if you're currently eligible for one of the automatic admission scholarships on your Choose Western offer portal, which you can access at choose.uwo.ca. For the top tier, the Scholarship of Excellence, you'll find out for sure if you're receiving it before you have to accept your offer. But for the other 2 tiers, you'll find out in early September. You'll get an email, and then the money will go towards your second installment of tuition. The Faculty of Arts and Humanities also offers extra automatic admission scholarships in addition to the ones I just mentioned. Again, there's no application required. Western recognizes that Black and Indigenous students are historically undersupported in post-secondary education. It's important to us to address this inequity, and one way we're doing that is with additional automatic admission scholarships. Just like the last slide, these scholarships are automatic and you don't need to apply for them. However, you do need to self-identify as either Black or Indigenous. Once you self-identify, you'll be automatically considered, and scholarships will be awarded to students with the top academic performance. We also understand that international students face unique challenges, so we've introduced scholarships and supports to help ease the transition. If you're an international student already studying at a Canadian high school in Canada, you'll be eligible for the Continue in Canada Admission Scholarship. You will receive $10,000 each year for 4 years. What's really cool about this scholarship is that you also receive a guaranteed spot in residence for all 4 years of your undergraduate degree at Western. Earlier, I mentioned some of the financial benefits of living in residence, but there are so many more. You'll receive access to exclusive events and supports, and historical data even shows that students who live in residence perform better academically. Moving on to the Welcome to Canada Admission Scholarship, which is for students coming to Western from outside of Canada. With this scholarship, you'll receive $10,000 in your first year, plus you'll be guaranteed a spot in residence in your first year as well. For both of these scholarships, you don't need to apply. You'll be automatically considered. However, there are some Western scholarships that do require applications. For instance, the National Scholarship Program offers our biggest scholarship for new students. It's made up of multiple scholarships ranging from $30,000 to $100,000. There are awards for Canadian students, international students, Black students, and students from specific faculties. But don't worry, you just complete one application and then you'll be considered for all the scholarships that you're eligible for within the program. If your average is over 90%, you can apply for this scholarship. You'll also need to be nominated by your high school. The application for this scholarship is due on February 14th. And here are some top tips for success. Be sure to contact guidance counselor or school early to determine the criteria for nomination. Second, make sure your application is well-rounded. Both academics and extracurriculars are important. And lastly, choose a reference who knows you well and can speak to your high school career and achievements, but make sure that this reference comes from within your school. The final scholarship I want to highlight is the Schulich Leaders Scholarship. This is a scholarship fund of over $100 million, which provides up to 100 undergraduate scholarships each year across top Canadian universities, including Western. Its purpose is to help students become the next global pioneers in science, technology, engineering, and math. You could receive $100,000 for science or $120,000 for engineering. And as a fun fact, this year, 10 Western students received the scholarship. Like the National Scholarship Program, it requires a nomination and an application. Your high school needs to nominate you by January 29th, and then your application is due by February 19th. Okay, so there are a lot of scholarship options, but Western also offers bursaries. This is financial support you don't have to pay back, just like a scholarship, except bursaries are completely based on financial need. And like some scholarships, you do need to apply for them. Bursaries are available to Canadian citizens and permanent residents. As a new first-year student, you need to apply by July 10th. You'll complete an application with information about your financial situation, as well as your background and lived experiences. Then you'll find out how much you're eligible for. And the good news is, if you're the first generation in your family to attend post-secondary education, you are guaranteed at least $2,000. And we also offer guarantee for at least $3,000 for students coming from a province outside of Ontario. All right, we're almost at the end. I've covered some of the top sources of funding for first year, but what about after that? Beyond your first year, there are even more options for support. You can apply for bursary funds every year, and there are tons of upper year scholarships available. You also have new options like work study. These are part-time jobs on campus available for students in financial need. As well as earning money, it's a great way to gain workplace experience, and it will be flexible around your studies. Similarly, you could earn money at paid internships. And there are also paid experiences like the Black Leadership University experience, where students earn over $6,000 while developing leadership skills. There are so many options, and we'll be there to help you find the right funding sources for you. All right, let's recap. When it comes to tuition, you can find an estimate for your tuition and program using the Financial Resources Workbook. We're also there to help make payments easier with flexible plans and a variety of payment options. There are a lot of options for financial support, including loans like OSAP, scholarships, and bursaries. Western offers a wide range of admission scholarships, lots of which you'll be automatically considered for. I also want to remind you of the 2 upcoming scholarship application deadlines. For the Western National Scholarship Program, it's February 14th, and your high school nomination for the Schulich Leaders needs to be in by January 29th. Finally, after first year, there are still so many ways that you can fund your studies. And if you remember one thing from this presentation, I want you to know that you are supported. I've gone over a lot of options, but we'll also be reminding you in emails, and you can always reach out to us for help. Now, last poll of the night, I want to ask, was this useful? Are you feeling more confident about the costs associated with university or how to receive financial aid? Okay, I see that most of us are feeling more confident. That's great to see. If you're still not feeling confident, don't worry. It is really confusing and complicated, but we are here to help answer your questions tonight and later on through email. you can check out our website. But I'm glad to see that a lot of you are feeling a little bit more confident about finances now. So for an overview of everything that we've discussed today, you can go to our website, welcome.uwo.ca/finances. And if you want to connect with a financial advisor, if you have any other questions, you can go to our website, Western Chat. For information about residence fees and everything that we have to offer, you can go to residence.uwo.ca. And if you just want to learn more about Western in general, you can speak to a current student on our website as well, or follow us on our Instagram at ChooseWesternU. So don't worry, we'll keep the Zoom room open. So if you have questions in the Q&A or you want to add them now, you can. And I do want to thank you for joining us tonight. Like I said, I am joined by some amazing staff. So we do have someone from the financial team, Dahlia, here with us, and she has volunteered to help answer some general questions about finances. So I will just pass things over to her in a second, but thank you so much for your time and for listening to me today.